Alrighty, cool. We can get started. Thank you everyone for joining this week. Really excited to be here. I'm going to be kind of running this one. Simone is on vacation, and next week we're actually going to have someone talking about substreams this week. So, if anyone this is your first time here, we're starting this Graph Builders office hours to kind of have some time to do stuff that's a little bit more in the weeds, something that's, getting closer to building something on the graph. And so each week we're going to try to feature some kind of tool or solution or showcase something. So if anyone's interested in showcasing something they've been working on or anything, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. And you can actually maybe even present as well. So so we can actually just get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. My entire screen. There we go. Okay, go live. Awesome, cool. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Looks good, but just double check. Okay, awesome, cool. Okay, so I'm going to be talking today about mainly about this blog post that I wrote. Actually, it's basically a branch of Scaffold-ETH too. So anyone who is new to Scaffold-ETH or has maybe have heard it before but wasn't exactly sure what it is, Scaffold-ETH 2 is this kind of toolkit that comes with a lot of things for you, kind of ready to go to start building on Ethereum. So it does come with Hardhat out of the box, and it comes with Next.js on top of React. It also comes with a lot of Yarn scripts already written for you, and it also comes with a lot of plugins for Next.js, such as WagMe and Rainbow Kit and VM. And so it's got a lot of stuff just kind of ready and put together with you. And then we have a special branch that actually Simone worked on where it makes it easy to be able to spin up the graph locally inside of Docker using Scaffold-ETH 2 and then connecting them up together. So today I'm just going to kind of showcase that. So we can start. So if anyone wants to check out Scaffold-ETH, you literally can just do a Google search for Scaffold-ETH 2. It should be the first thing that comes up. It is available on GitHub, obviously. It's pretty actively developed. So there's two versions of Scaffold-ETH. The first version has been out for quite a while, probably at least 4 years, I would say, something like that. Scaffold-ETH 2 is rather new, and it's kind of a rewrite of Scaffold-ETH, and it's a lot faster. The first version was written in React. This one is written in React with Next.js and TypeScript, so it's a little bit more, type safe, and it also is kind of being built as a more modular type of style of architecture. So in the future, you'll be able to actually add on modules to do different things. So an example would be like if you want to use Foundry, one of the first modules they're working on is Foundry. So you'll be able to swap out Hardhat with Foundry. Or if you don't like, I don't know, Next.js for some reason and you want to strap in a different kind of front end, maybe there's going to be a thing for that. There also will be a graph integration, so for integration for the graph. So right now it's a separate branch. So if we come here and we scroll down, there's a subgraph package right here. And this is the kind of the solution that Simone created and that's maintained from Edge and Node and from the graph community to use in Scaffold-ETH. So so if you want to check it out, this is kind of the place to go, and you should be good. I'm actually just going to kind of dive right into kind of the command line and kind of walk you guys through how Scaffold-ETH works and then how specifically the graph integration works. So I've already gone ahead and checked out the repository here. So we have access to the directory. I've also gone ahead and did the Yarn install. So when you first get the package checked out, you'll go into there, do a Yarn install. It takes about 20 or 30 seconds to install the dependencies, and that will kind of get you up and running. And then if you've ever used Scaffold-ETH, you'll know that everything is Yarn commands. So it's kind of trying to make it easy for the developer so that they have a really good developer experience. So Yarn chain will spin up a copy of Hardhat for you. So it spins up Hardhat, it spins up all of those accounts that come with Hardhat as well, so that you have these kind of private keys available to you in the console, and you can inject those into MetaMask or whatever browser you want to use. Okay. Everything good? You guys can hear me okay? Someone came off mute for a second.
All good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So as you can see, we are already getting some hard hat output here, which is really useful just to see like, you know, the ETH calls that are being made. But we're going to leave hard hat open. So you're always going to have that window open. So I'm using something called tmux, which is basically just splits up my terminal. It's really cool. If you guys aren't familiar, it's really easy to use, and you can kind of have multiple windows. You can do all this stuff in separate windows as well. That's fine. And so in this next one, I'm going to do a yarn start. So the first one, yarn chain, is going to spin up hard hat. Second command is going to spin up yarn start, which is going to spin up React with Next.js. So it's rather fast. So we can see it's already actually up and running. So really quick, and it's going to stay open as well. So that's where you're going to keep your front end open so that you can, you know, see console output of errors or anything like that, or if there's something wrong. And then in this last window, then we can do our yarn deploy. So again, same directory, and there's a yarn deploy command. You can just do yarn deploy, and it will basically take a smart contract that comes with Scaffold-ETH, and it will deploy it for you to hard hat. So you can see we got that deployment here. It tells us how much gas was used. It tells us the transaction number, the hash, and then it tells us the where it was deployed to, and then it tells you where like the TypeScript definition files are. It just gives you some output. So if you wanted to do yarn deploy again, you would notice that it's not going to redeploy it because it's going to see that nothing changed. But you can always force a deploy too. So you can do yarn deploy -- reset, which is just kind of a nice, good to know. And that will force a copy of the contract to get deployed again. So you can see now it redeployed. And so it's kind of cool to show that. So let's look at Scaffold-ETH real quick and take a look. Oh. So it runs on React, so localhost 3000. So we hit refresh, and we'll get our React app that's up. And so this is kind of like the UI, the front end of Scaffold-ETH. Right out of the box, you get, what's really cool is you get this burner wallet functionality. So you don't need to actually connect to MetaMask. You can just utilize the burner wallet that comes with Scaffold-ETH, and you can just grab some funds from the faucet by clicking this little icon right here, and it throws some funds from hard hat into your wallet. And then you can actually come in here and you can go to the debug contract. So this home folder is like kind of where you would start building your app if you wanted to. But really the secret sauce for Scaffold-ETH is here in this debug contracts, and it kind of gives you access to your variables. It gives you access to, well, here's another variable, an owner address variable. You have a Boolean here, and we have a counter. So it gives you all your variables here. It gives you your address for your contract. So we can see here's our contract. So if I come over here and do another deploy and come back, we'll see that this is going to update. It's going to give us a new fresh contract, right? And so you can start doing that and testing your assumptions. So it's kind of, you can imagine that you're using Scaffold-ETH to kind of like write your smart contract, and we'll get to it in a second where it sits and stuff like that, and you can start editing it. But it also gives you all the read and the write functions. So we can actually call this write function to set a greeting. So that's one of the functions of this kind of like hello world smart contract as it comes with. So we could say like, all right, set the greeting to the graph or something like that. And we can also send some value if we wanted, because it's like a payable function, but we'll just hit send. And there we go. So we can see that we updated the variable to say the graph. We didn't pay any premium. We didn't add any value here. So the Boolean's still false, but we do have the counter increased here as well. And then we can go to the example UI. And I'm just giving you guys a walkthrough of Scaffold-ETH so you know kind of what to expect if you want to do this later. It's just kind of nice to have an overview of it. We can set our greeting here using this kind of like UI that comes with us, which is all written out. So we could say like, all right, well, it's foo like this. And you'll see here that we're also including some price and also the gas to pay for the transaction. So we can hit send. And then here we go. We get a new counter. We get the foo. And then now we can come over here and look at the debug contracts and see that the premium was set to true because we sent some value into the contract with that transaction right here. We sent 0.01 ETH. And so we also see that the contract now has some value. So it has some balance right here. And it also has, we have a withdraw function. So you'd think we'd be able to hit send, but it's not going to let us because we have some kind of like access control in the smart contract. So that's fine. Either way, you can see kind of how we're kind of messing around with just the vanilla smart contract comes with it. It also has a block explorer, which is kind of interesting. So it shows all the transactions. It shows, who did what. on your smart contract. So let's look at the code for this. So if we look at the structure for the files, basically there's this packages folder. So it is a monorepo, so it has like 3 different kind of solutions in it, right? It's got Hardhat, which is your backend, and then it's got Next.js for your front end, and then it's got the subgraph stuff, which we're going to get into as well. Let's take a look first at the Hardhat directory. So this is exactly where all your smart contract stuff's going to be, obviously in Hardhat. And there's this contracts tab, and then there's the your contract. And so we can see that we have our smart contract in here, which is this kind of like just, vanilla hello world contract, which has everything that we just kind of interacted with. It's got the variables, the address variable, which is the owner, which is actually the Hardhat account that deployed this. We can see that that's right here during the constructor, the owner's passed. And if we wanted to, we could look at that in a sec, which we will, and see how the constructor's getting that variable there. And then we have the modifier, which shows us like access control rules, like in Solidity, a modifier is basically to like require certain things to be true on a function. And so we can see later on that we might call that in the withdraw function right here is owner is the modifier. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but it's rather simple actually. And then we have this set greeting function, which allows us to update the greeting and set the Boolean. And we're just doing some interesting little logic so you can kind of like see how smart contracts work. Okay, so, and we can also look at the deploy script, which is right below it right here. So there's a deploy your contract, and then this is all written in JavaScript, and it uses Hardhat. So we can see here that I talked about the constructor inside of the contract, which is here. We set this owner variable, which is the owner of the smart contract, so that we can do access control later here in the withdraw function. And we can see that we do that here inside of the deploy script. We send the arguments right here. So if we wanted to change that, we could like write this out. We could hard code the deployer to some kind of address here if we wanted to. We could make changes to the deploy script, and that would affect how our smart contracts deployed. But this is not a demo on Hardhat per se. So let's get into the next part. So Next.js also we're not really going to mess with too much. I'm going to show you a little bit later how the you'd be able to inject some of the data from the graph in there, but we're not going to go into that just yet. Instead, we're going to look at this subgraph folder. And so this is where the entire graph solution is set up. And I think most importantly, there's the there's the graph node folder, and then there's a Docker compose file. So the entire solution runs in Docker. So you don't really need to know Docker or anything special, but it's good to understand, what's spinning up. We're getting all of our ports defined here for the graph node, which is pulling like the latest version that you have available. And we have some like variables that we're defining. We have IPFS container, which has the mount for the volume to be mounted to keep the IPFS data. And we also have a Postgres database. And we have some like environment variables as well. This one particularly is important because it fixes an issue on Macs. It's a rather new update. But anyway, so the point is everything runs in Docker. So what we can do is now we can kind of go back to our command line here. And let's take a look at one more thing too, actually. Let's look at the package.json file. So if you're not familiar with Yarn, I imagine most people here are, but just a real brief overview. Yarn, you can do these things called scripts. And you can write out these commands to do things, inside of your project. So all the stuff we've been doing already, like yarn start, yarn deploy, yarn chain, is all written in here. So you can see what it does. And then you can reference the workspace that it's in. So I've gone ahead and I've actually imported all the workspace stuff from the subgraph commands for the subgraph package, but they're all here as well. So, there's commands like stopping the nodes, like if you want to spin down Docker, if you want to spin up Docker, you can do run node. If you want to clean up any old data that's inside of the graph node folder, you can run clean node. You also have like to be able to create the subgraph configuration here and then ship it using this, which will actually do the ABI copy, the code gen, and the build, and it will deploy locally for you all in one command. So these are just kind of interesting and good to reference if you're kind of confused, but my blog post walks you through literally like one by one on what you need to do. So you can't really mess it up, but let's go ahead and let's kind of go through the process. So again, I've copied, and this is going to be a pull request, but right now you would normally have to go into this directory and run some of these commands. I pulled all those in here, and they're all available in this main primary package JSON file. So we're just going to be able to execute these commands here, all inside of this workspace because it is, like I said, a mono repo. So we can start doing that. So let's do yarn clean dash node. So yarn clean node just basically is going to check to see if there's any previous deployment. Like if you were like toying around with Docker and the graph and like you were testing something and then you redeployed your smart contract, you might want to run yarn clean node and then clean up all the old data. And then you can do a stop node just to make sure that the containers are stopped and not running anymore. And so we didn't see any resources. So then we can do yarn run node like this. So that's pretty much it. So what it's going to do is that's going to do Docker compose up for you. It's going to reference the Docker compose file. It's going to spin up all three of the containers. That might take a few minutes to run depending on your machine, but it's going to kind of get it ready to go. So let's look at the blog post so far that we've kind of what we've done so far. So we went through, and this explains what Scaffold-ETH is, what the graph is. We cloned a specific branch of Scaffold-ETH 2. We installed all the dependencies. We did the yarn chain. We did the yarn start. We did the deploy. We went in and actually tested our deployment with a greeting. And then we can go into the graph, which is what we're doing now. And we're doing clean node to clean up any of the old data. We're running the node. And we're gonna get up and started. So let's see if it did. So it looks like it's up now. Okay. So this is a third window that you're gonna always keep up. So now you have three windows. You have your backend, which is Hard Hat. You have your front end, which is Next.js, and you have the middleware, which is the graph, all running in Docker, right? So this other one, we can start doing our configuration. So let's do yarn local create. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna create the subgraph configuration inside of there based on I believe on the ABI. And then we're going to do a yarn local dash ship. So all that's going to do is it's going to ship the configuration for the subgraph into the local Docker containers that you have running. So it's just like you would normally use the graph CLI for, but it's going to use it locally, obviously, to do that for you. So it's going to pass in all that stuff for you, and then it's going to create the build, and then it's going to publish it. So here it's just asking for the version, right? Just like you would do if you were deploying a subgraph to like the studio. So 0.0.1, and then here we go. We get it deployed. We can see some console output from Docker, and we get our subgraph endpoint. So now we can grab that. So let's do this, and let's go there and check it out. All right, so we get this query that comes with it, which is going to check for greetings. It's going to show the greeting, show the sender's address, show the greeting count that they have, and what their premium Boolean is set to. And then we hit play. There we go. So we have two different results, which is perfect because we did that twice, right? First one we did using the debug contracts tab. And then the next one we just did using the premium true, which is using the UI. Okay. And so out of the box, we have that. And then what we can do now is we can look at see some of the boilerplate code that was already written for us as well. So we can take a look at, so we know that the graph is all working. We know that Hard Hat's working, obviously. But let's look at Next.js, and let's look at I believe it's pages, and then example UI. No. It's actually under components. So it's a little convoluted how the app is set up, and you'll probably take some time to dig in here and look. There's the app.jsx file, which is kind of like the main kind of application full file, and then that references the index.ts file, which is like that first page that you see when you log in to Scaffold-ETH. But then there's this debug contracts one, which is kind of like this dynamic page to test your stuff, which is really cool. But then there's the example UI, and then that example UI uses the contract data and the contract interaction stuff inside of components. So we can go to components, example UI, and we have those here. And what I want to show you guys is the contract data one, which is probably most interesting. There's already some code written in here for you, but essentially we have like the greetings here. So we are using the Apollo client here. So we inject the Apollo client, and then we have the greeting here, and then we kind of do our GQL call here, and then we get our greetings data using a interval of 1,000 milliseconds, I believe. And then we kind of like console log that. So the next step would be is you would kind of write maybe some like Next.js script in here to do what you want with the data so that you can display it in your front end. So let's look at the app. Let's go back to here. Let's go to example UI. Let's go to view, developer tools, and let's take a look at it and we can see. So here we have, we hit refresh, and then we have our greetings data. Here it is. And then we have our data, and then we have our greetings object, and here it is. So we actually have the two different greetings available to us here inside of this data object that's being basically queried from GraphQL. So the next step would be that you would kind of go through, and then you would like parse this information and display it in a prettier way, right? So all right, so let's say that actually, why don't we do this? Let's stop for a second and see if anyone has any questions, and then after that, what I'll do is I'll go through and show how we can add like a second event to this configuration. Any questions so far? Looking good? Check out the chat, actually. I'm really bad about watching chat. Okay, cool. Doing good so far. Awesome. Okay. If you guys do have questions, feel free to let me know. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, let's keep doing some more stuff. All right, so let's say that you want to start kind of evolving your smart contract a little bit. So the natural thing you would do is you'd come to your contracts and you would start kind of like building something out. So what I'd like to do is just reference like what's in my blog actually. So in my blog, I show how to do all the shipping and how to do the deploy and how to do a query and all that stuff. But then I get to this point where we talk about adding additional events. And for anyone who joined late, this blog post is available in the chat. I'll post it again here in a little bit. But we have this ability to, let's add another function. So we're going to grab this code and I'll walk you through what it's doing here in a second. So let's do, so we have this, event that we're going to create, which is called send message. It's going to take in a address, and it's going to take in a second address to where it's going to send data, and it's going to take in a string. And then we have a function that's going to allow us to send a message to that address from a different address. And it's going to take some call data, which is a message, and then it's externally available, and it's going to emit that event. So it's a really kind of like basic way to like send like a log, I guess, on a smart contract. So we can do the message.sender is who it's from, and the address that it's coming to is passed inside of the function, and then the string is the call data message that's sent, right? So we can save that, and then we can come over to our UI, and we can do yarn deploy -- reset. And it's going to give us a new smart contract. So let's go look at it and let's see if it works. So let's go here to debug contracts, and there we go. So now we have this new kind of send message. So I could send this to like, I don't know, Vitalik.eth. Hey, it's Kevin, like this, and hit send. So you can see like Scaffold-ETH has some interesting stuff. Like it pulls up the ENS logo. It pulls up with this little like blocky dude, which is kind of like a block interpretation of the address, and then allows us to send the message, and it also gives us a copy of our transaction receipt, so we can see like whether it was successful or not, or see the information of it. And then so we're able to do this kind of like send this message. Obviously, we sent it locally. We didn't actually send it to Vitalik, but so let's go ahead and let's go back in here. And let's assume that we want to then go a little bit further and we want to actually start tracking this stuff. So if you're familiar with the graph, you need to create the schema. So we can start with that first. So there's the schema file, which is in the packages subgraph folder. So we can go to packages, subgraph, and I think it's in source. There it is, schema.graphql. So we can add the additional schema here. So we had the greeting in there and we had the sender of the greeting, but now we want to add these new things we want to keep track of, right? So we want to keep track of the message. We want to keep track of the messenger, like who actually sent the message. We can actually do the derived to from field. And then we can also have the receiver of who the message was sent to. So we're going to be able to track some more entities. We can save that. Then it walks us through like where we need to add that into the subgraph YAML. So that is under packages subgraph YAML. So we can go here and we need to add the 3 different ones, right? So we have the greeter and sender already there. So we need to add the here. So message, messenger, receiver to the entities here. And then we have the event handlers, which is we need to create the handler for this event. So we can put that right below here. Right here. And so we're going to have a handler called send message that's going to take in those 3 variables, and it's going to be called, the handler is going to be called handle message. The event is called send message. So we need to then create this handle message handler. So we can do a yarn ABI copy to copy the smart contracts ABI into the subgraph package, which is this is basically a TypeScript script that we ran. And then we can do yarn code gen here to generate the code and place it in the from the ABI, generate the schema, all that good stuff if needed. And then we can go into this mappings.ts file. So we go to source mappings.ts. And so now we need to add this handler. Okay, so let's go into the handler. And we already have one again, we have all the code written for us, which is really useful. So we want to import the send message. So we need to add this one. So we need to go here and say import send message. That's right. Oh. Okay, and then we want to grab the message messenger receiver. Oh, did I do the wrong one actually? I think I did, yeah.
Code gen.
Yes, thank you. This one I'm going to put here. This is like the worst. Should just copy paste the whole thing. Okay. All right, that worked. Okay. So then we need to just do this other function. So again, this is already kind of written for us, but we're just going to grab all this data because I'm not going to write all this out on the call. You guys will fall asleep. Okay. So we got the we have the handle greeting here. So now we have the handle message here, which is really doing the same thing. It's just grabbing all the data, putting it into the schema configuration. And then we can do yarn local ship. So we can do yarn local, did I save it? Okay. Yarn local -ship. And this is going to take, basically take our new graph configuration, compile it, build it, send it out. So we'll do 0.0.2. And let's go full screen. It's deploying. Let's see if it worked. I think it's the same URL, but let's just go to here just in case. Okay. And let's see if we have our data. So we should be able to just query the current thing. So I already have a query written here. So we're going to grab the messages, the very first one, to sending, ordered by created date with the ID, who it came from, the messages, stuff like that. So let's put that in here and hit play. There you go. So this is the message I sent to Vitalik.eth, and I said, hey, it's Kevin. And yeah, so we were able to add a new event to our smart contract, create the graph configuration, and then push that stuff out. So fairly straightforward. This is perfect. This was exactly 30 minutes. That's what I was aiming for. So, okay. So any questions about that before I kind of finish up some more of this stuff. But I think pretty much I showed the full kind of solution. But any questions about Scaffold-ETH or this kind of solution that I can answer for you guys? Check chat here. Okay, so one of the questions in chat is the Yarn ABI copy a standard graph CLI function? All right, well, let's take a look actually. So I'll show you where we could look for that. So we go to the subgraph folder, and then we can go to the package JSON here, and we can kind of see what it does. So ABI copy is just running TS node, and then it's running this ABI copy script. So if we look inside that scripts folder, and then we see the ABI copy. So this is actually a quite interesting script. I believe Simone wrote this. Basically what it does is it goes in and grabs all of the deployments from Hardhat, which is in the Hardhat's folder, and it reads in the JSON file, and then it builds out the configuration for how it needs to deploy the graph or configure the graph configuration and publish the subgraph package. And so it does some error catching. Yeah, if there's any failures, it kind of catches the errors for you and then displays them for you. So it's just kind of like a fancy way to copy the ABI file in the proper format that it needs to be read in from the graph CLI. Yep, super handy, yeah. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so let me see if there's anything else we can go over. Any other questions? Anyone want to come off mute or paste in a question? Feel free. Can you deploy or sell? That's a great question. Yes, absolutely. So, like, let's say we wanted, so we could actually go a step further with this whole stuff. Matter of fact, that's probably what I'll do right now. Is we'll kind of go down that alley because it seems like it's a little quiet. So let's do this. So if you're familiar with deploying smart contracts like on a test net or something like that, or your front end, it's nice to have all this stuff locally, but at some point you're going to need to push this stuff out, right? So the first thing is you'll want to take your smart contract and publish it somewhere that it's going to be accessible if you send it to Vercel, right? So right now we're using all of the Hardhat accounts, which are the 20 accounts that come with Hardhat. The private keys are public. Everyone has access to them. So you don't want to use those to do your deploy because any ETH that you try to send to that contract will be susceptible to be stolen, basically. So you can also do a Yarn generate. Yarn generate, what it's going to do is it's going to generate a new private key and save it in your environment variable inside of packages Hardhat, and it's going to store it there. And what that's going to give the ability to do is you can then do a Yarn account, and you can generate a QR code for your account, and it gives you the address. So I could just take, I have my phone here, and then I have like a Punk wallet. And so Punk Wallet is a wallet that is created by Scaffold-ETH as well. And it has the scanner option on it, so I can take it, scan in the address. For some reason, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, there it goes. No, that work? Shoot. Okay, well, let me just do it the old-fashioned way. Let me send some ETH here. So we have this public address here. It's a deployer account. So we can come over here. We can load up. We'll load up my other thing here, and we'll send some ETH here. So let's go to Sepolia, and we get some Sepolia ETH, and I can send, paste in this address, and then I'll send, I don't know, 0.01. No, that's too much. 0.5. That's too much too. I'll do that. Okay. All right. So gas prices are high. Sure, why not? Okay. So I sent Sepolia ETH from my Hardhat account in this browser over here. And then if I come over here and just wait like a couple seconds and redo my Yarn account, it's going to check my balances for all of my most important ones. And we can see now that I have a balance on Sepolia. So before I did not. Now I have a 0.03 balance. So what that did, I just transferred some funds into my deployer account. So then I can just do a yarn deploy -- network and do Sepolia like this. And then what's going to do is just going to, instead of using the local host configuration, it's going to deploy my contract to Sepolia, and it's going to put it in into the test mempool, and then it's going to get validated in whatever amount of seconds it takes. So there it goes. It looks like it was deployed successfully. And we can also do a yarn verify -- network Sepolia, I think. Let's see if that works. I think this contract might already be verified, but let's see. Oh, there it goes. So we can also verify our contract from the command line, which is really cool. There we
And
go.
when you say verifying the contract, that just unencodes the ABIs?
So what it does is it takes a copy of the smart contract, sends it to Etherscan, I believe, and verifies the bytecode versus the compile. So it actually sends it to Etherscan, they compile it and compare it to the bytecode to make sure that the source code matches. So it basically just verifies it through Etherscan. So if we go here to like Etherscan, Sepolia, I'll show you real quick. Let's grab the address. So here it is. 1 minute ago we deployed and we have contract, and we can see here that it's already verified. So it has the little green checkbox. So basically we just sent them the source code. Maybe it sends an ABI. It sends the ABI. Actually, I'm not sure. But if we were to come in here and try to manually do it, I think you would need to paste the ABI. So yeah, it must send the ABI. You're right. Sorry. But yeah, you can see the smart contracts here, and you can see, yeah, there's the ABI, the contract creation code, which is the arguments, and then let's see, here's the your contract. So here we can see our contract that has the send message right here. So this is our smart contract. So anyways, the reason why you want to verify the contract is because if you want to use the graph CLI tool and you want it just to read in the ABI automatically, it just makes it a lot easier. So I always just tell people to verify the contract, and it just kind of goes with the standards of when you're building a Web3 smart contract, you want to verify it. Okay, so we've deployed our smart contract. So the next thing we would do is come into our front end. So we go to Next.js and go to pages. No, sorry. Go to scaffold config here. And we have this scaffold config, and I believe, here we go. So target networks, chains.sepolia, like that. So all we need to do is change that. That's it. And then we can come over to our UI and refresh. And you'll notice we got kicked out of our burner wallet here. So we have to connect to MetaMask. So let's do that. It tells us we're on the wrong network. We need to switch to Sepolia. Okay, so this is the long-winded answer to your question, but now we need to ship our app locally to Vercel. All right, so we have it on the right network. We have it pointing to the right smart contract, which is this one here, 2A. Oh, actually, is that the wrong one? Oh, that's my burner wallet. Sorry, this is my MetaMask wallet. But let's look at the contracts. 4B. Yeah. Okay. So this smart contract is embedded into this app, and it is pointing to Sepolia, so we could actually even start seeing transactions on here as well. But now we need to send it. So then we can come over here, and we can first let's look at the package JSON file. So there's one here, and it is Vercel, and then Vercel YOLO. There's two different ones. Vercel YOLO, let's look at it. So let's go into Next.js. Let's go to package JSON. All right, Vercel just does a Vercel command. Vercel does a ignore build errors, true. So I've found that sometimes there's some build error stuff, and so I always just do YOLO. So let's go ahead and try to do it real quick. Let's see if it works. So we're gonna need to do Vercel YOLO. So yarn Vercel YOLO. And I think it's gonna ask you at this point, you would have to sign in. So I've already signed in, but if you didn't you would need to. So do we want to set up and deploy this? Yes. Which scope do you want to deploy to? Kevin Jones creates. Link to existing project? No. What's your project name? We'll just tell it test. Which directory? There it goes. Now it's uploaded. Do you want to modify these settings? No. Okay, let's see if it worked. I think it's still going. But yeah, you get the idea. So it does work. And yeah, you can deploy it to a testnet. So then you could, technically share this, link with some other people if you like built a testnet app. And if you wanted to, you could ship to Mainnet. The world's your oyster. Okay, so let me see if there's any other questions. Anyone else in chat have questions? Okay, so if you want to get started on Scaffold-ETH, so I think everyone here is fairly familiar with the graph. Scaffold-ETH is a little bit of a new thing for some people. There's Speedrun Ethereum, which is really cool. If you haven't gone through Speedrun Ethereum, it's a really cool experience. You can go through these challenges and you can kind of test your skills. Well, each one is kind of builds on top of each other and gets a little more difficult. So the first one is like to build an NFT. Next one is to build a staking app, token vendor, and then eventually you actually get invited to the Build Guild. So the Build Guild is this kind of like collection of developers that help push the Scaffold-ETH community forward, and and it's pretty cool. And then you can do like a dice game, and then you build a DEX. Then you can do a state channel application challenge. This one's new. Multi-sig wallet, cohort, SVG NFT one where you can build these little loogies, which are these little like SVG loogie characters. So it's really fun. All you do is connect your wallet and you can kind of get registered. And then as you go through it, it's cool. You can just create these quests and then submit the challenge. And you just put the site where you deployed it to and your contract URL and you can submit it. These challenges all use Scaffold-ETH 1, but it's a very similar experience. And there's also a TypeScript build of Scaffold-ETH 1 as well. And we're in the process, or I should say the Build Guild is in the process of migrating all this stuff over to Scaffold-ETH 2 as well. So you might want to wait for that, but I would just say it's rather simple and it's kind of a cool experience to go through and do that. Okay, question about the graph. Sorry, I just got in the call. I'd like to know if I can know a call data for an internal transaction using the graph. Yeah, so looks like the bot answered your question for you. So you should be able to, get that data that you need. I love the world we live in. The bots can answer the questions. Okay. Any other questions that you guys have? Does anyone else want to talk about anything particularly or bring anything up? So next week, I'm going to be, I think next week is the 13th. So next week is the core dev call. So we won't probably have a office hours next week, I believe. I'll double check with that, but I think we might miss that. And then we would probably have one on the 20th, I believe. So yes, so let's plan to meet again then, and Yeah, so I think if you want to ask a question, any questions about subgraph stuff, you can ask in the query subgraphs channel. There's also the subgraph developer channel as well. Yeah. Thank you, Derek. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I appreciate you guys' time today. And I'll catch you guys next time.